Hello, beautiful ones. Dr. Niikee here. So what I thought I would come on today and share with you a little bit more about the laws of energy, or the universal laws, as they're also called sometimes. Where did these come from? Now, we're hearing so much today about, the nature of energy, the law of attraction, manifestation, all of these things, encoding our consciousness with intentions, affirmations, or the whole plethora. So what we're talking about is actually working with energy and understanding how energy actually works, just because that's the way that it works. Similar to all of our laws of physics and other science that, that we're taught all through universities, and, and even deeper when we start to look at the quantum world as well. But what I wanted to share more about today is, where did this information actually come from? So the laws of the universe, the law of attraction, the law of vibration, the law of co-creation, all of those things. And so from what we understand from history is that in ancient Egypt, the ibis head god called Thoth wrote on what's called an emerald tablet. And what was written on this tablet were these universal laws. And what the purpose of us understanding these universal laws is that it actually helps to empower us in our lives to be able to become the creators that we truly are. As this information gets lost, we are more or less just swimming around in the world as we know it, almost being victim to our circumstance, when we don't have an understanding of how we're actually contributing with our energetic imprint to what is actually happening around us. And, so back in these times, ancient Egypt, there is also writings in ancient Greek texts as well by Hermes, their god, at the time. So these civilizations overlapped quite a lot at that time. And so these teachings were all throughout. And, what the awareness of these teachings produced for us are some of the greatest thinkers that we still know today. So people like Pythagoras, Aristotle, Socrates, Plato, the list goes on. And, the great halls of Alexandria, the libraries that were there in ancient Egypt, were filled with initiates. What they were called were people who were open to these teachings and would travel far and wide to come to learn in these great halls from the teachers, who would then go on, the initiates would then go on to become the teachers. And this happened generation after generation after generation during these civilizations. And, armed with this knowledge, this is why some of their basic underpinning theories and philosophies are still recognized today in some of the major branches of science. What happened towards the end of these times is was war. The Romans came, didn't appreciate anything that wasn't along their train of, religious ideals and things like that. The way it always went with warring nations, since the dawn of time, really. And so what happened is a lot of this information had to go underground. And, the scrolls got scattered far and wide, the different texts from ancient Greece, so they missed all being destroyed. So the great Library of Alexandria got burnt down, and, all of these sorts of things. And, it wasn't until about the 15th century when a lot of this information started getting dug up again. And what it actually created was the Renaissance. So you've probably heard of that before, the Renaissance in Florence. And again, this went for a few hundred years. And again, this started to birth some more great revolutionaries. So we've got Shakespeare, Da Vinci, Michelangelo, some of those great architects and creators were all born out of that time as well. That time where it was common practice for people to be taught that we are actually creator beings, and we have that capacity to co-create with the universe all the time when we start to understand these laws a bit better. And of course, as warring goes, you know, the French king didn't like the fact that, you know, the people were becoming so empowered in Florence, and, you know, so put a stop to that, and, you know, killed all these people again. And the scrolls again went scattering around the world. And, you know, it wasn't until more recent times where this information is coming to light again. And there's a famous text you might have heard of, the Kybalion, which was written by the three initiates. That's just what it says. No one knows where it came from. And it is a discussion of these original teachings. And, you know, it has been reprinted in numerous languages. It has been written and, you know, contemplated by numerous different authors, you know, since I think just after World War I was when it was first came to light for humanity. And, you know, so gradually over time, particularly since the year 2000, this information has really just gone almost mainstream in a way for people who are a little bit more open to an understanding that there is so much more than, you know, the black and white that we often see today's world as. And, you know, it's quite surprising given, you know, the technology and the level of, you know, research and development that happens in some areas that, you know, in some other areas, it's still lagging a little bit behind. But that said, you know, there is more and more research coming out as we get finer instrumentation to be able to measure energy. And, you know, this is where the difficulty lies. And it's the same in science when we talk about the quanta, which are the smallest subatomic particles, which are the smallest parts inside the nucleus of atoms. You know, we really don't have that finer technology to be able to understand it as well as we will as, you know, as time progresses. But what we do know is a lot through these ancient teachings. And, you know, then once you're aware of these things, you start to see them play out in your life. And the more you allow yourself to, you know, to witness what we are capable of, the more of that opens up for us as well. You know, I'm sure if you've been working with this sort of information and energy for a while, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. You know, even if you're just starting to discover it, I really encourage you to keep going with it, because really it was what fascinates me is they actually called the period the Dark Ages after the Renaissance. And so this is where, you know, we really as a collective hit rock bottom, because we had no awareness of anything other than what we were told, you know, by the kings and, you know, rulers of the day. And if we did, we ended up, you know, getting incarcerated, burnt at the stake, all of those, you know, all of those sorts of wonderful things that's scattered throughout history as well. But the good news is times are changing. There's so many of us waking up now to this greater reality that, you know, I really encourage you to, you know, reach out if you want to have a chit chat about anything. I'm always here to support you. And, you know, there's so many others out there now, you know, awakening as well.